Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekin for a free $200 credit.
Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by ShareFile from Citrix. Secure file transfer built for business. Visit sharefile.com, click on the microphone, and enter TWIST for a free 30-day trial. And by GoToMeeting. Sign up for GoToMeeting using promo code TWIST to begin your free trial.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, what a great episode we're having here, and it's all made possible by my friends at Citrix who make the great ShareFile, secure file transfers built for business. We've been using it here at This Week in Startups, and it is fantastic. Most businesses, emails include attachments. You know this, and you need to be able to get them in the right hands of people and keep them confidential. And ShareFile, you can send attachments as secure links of any size, and with a high degree of security, track the progress on your files, access files from any computer or mobile device. And we use it to request files from people, and we have them upload to a specific folder. We get email alerts when they upload them, and we can share really large video clips. So here's an example of it. I'm reading all this copy here, but there's a lot of bullet points here. But the best thing is when I do these partnership discussions is to actually just show the product and how we use it. And here, look, here's the activity log for This Week in Startups, and we can see who's been deleting or updating files. And this is great when we have somebody like a sponsor, like, hey, SourceBits, and here's their spot, or here's what they want to show. And I can see, oh, Demont is the owner of this, and he's downloaded on this date, he updated on this date, and it really works and keeps us in the know. And you can really start to filter and refine who gets to see a file, who gets to edit a file. And one of the things we did to show this power is to let you get a copy of the top 10 questions ever answered on This Week in Startups. So if you want to get that, you simply sign up for ShareFile using the promo code TWIST. Then you send us a file link to sharefile@launch.co. And we send you the top 10 episodes via ShareFile. So you'll get that right in your ShareFile. So once again, sign up for ShareFile, use the promo code TWIST, and then you send a request a file link to sharefile@launch.co. So you just request a file to sharefile@launch.co. No credit card required. Visit ShareFile, click on the radio microphone button, and use the promo code TWIST. That's right. Visit sharefile.com, click on the radio microphone button, and use the promo code TWIST, and you will get a 30-day free trial. And everybody just say thank you at ShareFile on Twitter. Let's get back to the program.
I had a short list of people I wanted to do fireside chats with at the event. One of them was Chamath. Actually, Mark Cuban, who couldn't make it, sends his regrets. He's going to come next year. And the other was Evan Williams amongst the short list. And Evan is a serial entrepreneur, as you know, who did Blogger, Twitter, Medium, and is just a really insightful guy who I've gotten to know over the years. So please join me in welcoming Evan Williams to the stage.
Oh, is that for me?
He likes to get 2 rounds of applause. It's a standard presenter trick. Please welcome to the stage, Evan Williams. Thanks, brother. Good to see you.
I was just saying how this is the most casual backstage I've ever seen. In fact, no one said, hey, you should go back on the stage.
Yeah, go actually on the stage and do a fireside chat.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Twitter came up in the last day and a half at the event, conservatively 10 times on every panel. When you made the product and you got it in the market, was there a point at which you knew it was going to become what it has become? It is a cultural, global phenomenon involved in so much of our lives. It's our identities, obviously, these. It's become global in a way that I don't think anybody ever anticipated. Was there a specific moment you can point to and say that was the tipping point?
No. I wish there was, because I get asked that question a lot, and it'd be great if there's right then. But I think these things happen over time. They sort of unfold, and you realize, oh, that's something different. I mean, there's the ones everyone knows about, like 2007 South by Southwest, which people call Twitter's launch, but was 9 months after we launched. But it was definitely a tipping point, and it was interesting because it was the first glimmer of, oh, this isn't just a social, what my friends are doing thing, it's a real-time information layer that added a new aspect to this whole event. And then there was thing after thing, and later that year there was wildfires in Southern California, and the LA Fire Department and the Red Cross were using it to spread information. I thought, maybe this is a thing. And then, thing after, I remember traveling to Chicago and on a very late flight, arriving at a hotel, turning on the TV and seeing Anderson Cooper telling people to follow at CNN so they could beat Ashton Kutcher to 1 million followers. And the next morning I was going on Oprah. Thought, okay, that's a new sort of level that we're at. But it just kept going. And all that time, Chris Sacca would text me, he's like, this is big. That became his theme. He'd say, capital B, capital I, capital G, it's big. And we're starting to get a sense that it was big.
And the product was so simple, in its iteration, and has remained, to a certain extent, very simple. I mean, do you think that elegant simplicity was the key to its success? Because when you showed it to me at brunch here in San Francisco, I don't know if you remember my initial response, but I think I said, the way you explained it to me initially was, it's like a blog post, but without the post. And I said, Ev, that's the stupidest thing I've ever... I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The blog post is the important part, not the headline. And you know what your response was? You don't remember.
No.
You said not everybody can write the blog post.
It's true.
It was almost like reductionism in a way. I mean.
Yeah. Well, I gave a talk at Web 2.0 a couple years ago about how, after working on Blogger for many years, and that it was always, how do we add more features? How do we add more features? And then, this was only in retrospect, it occurred to me, like, that was the same thing minus all the features. But simplicity is, just one aspect. I don't think you can say that's why it was successful and then go out and like, well, here's the simplest thing ever. It's a button. Just click the button. It's a holistic system, and if you can accomplish a lot while staying very simple, that's amazing. But usually there's complexity on the other side of simplicity, and lots of people still tell us Twitter's too hard to use, it's too confusing, and so the simplicity is sort of, it's a bit of a red herring, I think, in terms of what made it successful. It could be simpler, but yet it also needs to get more powerful.
Vine has been an amazing, I don't want to say second act, but it's an amazing second complete new experience inside of the company. I see you use it a lot. Mm-hmm. What does that mean for Twitter? Is this and I know you're not running the company, but what kind of impact has Vine had, and what does that mean for the future of the company?
Well, it's super early for Vine, and not running the company. I'm on the board, but can't really speak on behalf of the company. Vine is super exciting. I'm a fan of Vine.
Yeah.
I can't claim any credit for Vine, but
what's so special about it? Yeah.
It's I think in many ways why I like it is it captures the essence of what Twitter did in some ways for video, and it's one of the first forums that actually said, okay, we're not just duplicating what we had before, which is the process for the discovery of every new platform or every new medium. It's like, what uniquely makes sense here? And everything from the creation interface to the 6-second limit, and it's a new way to tell stories. And it's a perfect complement to Twitter because it's all about, it allows you to tell a story about what's happening right now in a way you didn't have before. It expands the palette.
And so when you look now at your career from Blogger to Twitter, and now you're doing Medium, an obvious corporation, what is the thread? I mean, you've built now 3 publishing platforms. What is it about publishing and individuals publishing that you find so appealing? Why is that your skill on this planet Earth?
I sort of stumbled onto it. was always interested in publishing. I think if not for the internet and computers, I may have been a writer or I always loved magazines. But I think Medium illustrates it the best because we started Obvious a couple years ago. We restarted Obvious, and we didn't really have a plan. But in the back of my mind, I really wanted to do what is now Medium. But I told myself and my partners, you know what? I'm just stuck in a rut. All I can think about is publishing platforms, so let's explore other things for a while. And we did that, and we incubated some companies and invested in some companies. They're all really exciting projects, and it was intellectually stimulating. But I learned two things. One was that I really wanted to focus on building a company and a product, so that's mostly what I'm doing. And I came back to Medium because it was the intersection of three things. At this point, it's so in my wheelhouse and what I think about. I thought I could do it well, which is important. And I saw a market opportunity, which is very big and will exist in a window of time. And three, it seemed like it mattered. I mean, at this point, having impact is at the top of my list of criteria in deciding what to do. And I just think the information that we consume that affects the discussion of society, how we make decisions, how we live our lives. I've always gotten a tremendous amount from reading the web, reading magazines, reading books, and I think there's so much more to be done. I can't not focus on it. And Medium incorporates ideas that I literally had in 2000 and wanted to build in a blogger and prototyped, and still I haven't seen done. That could mean they're terrible ideas, but I can't help but explore them. And it's just something about helping people share knowledge and information I find inspiring, and it feels like it's fundamental to all kinds of other things that we do because people learn from it and do new things.
So Blogger was incredibly disruptive, and blogging overall as a category, to traditional mainstream media. And obviously Twitter, with people reporting the news themselves, and citizen journalism. You know, we would talk about citizen journalism, but then Twitter actually manifested that. What is Medium manifesting? What is it correcting against? Because you're sort of alluding to something's broken right now in media. Is something broken, and what is it?
Well, we can do better. I would put it that way. And I think there's some trends that are not necessarily encouraging in terms of the professional side of media. I mean, the internet has dropped the cost of distribution, which has caused a flood of new information, and the incentives reward frequency and keeping costs low when it comes to creating content. And therefore, we see more stuff faster and faster, and sort of a disincentive against investing in a particular piece of content. And so just the way we've decided to organize the web, which is put the new thing on top, if volume increases, that means things disappear much more quickly. And so that rewards a particular type of content.
Increased frequency, lower quality, and you built the tools to enable that in a way. I mean,
True.
Blogger and Twitter were tools to go faster and to go cheaper.
Yeah. And
do you
put
feel
the
like
thing on
that's
top.
collapsed on itself now?
I think there's other things to do. And if you look at the web very generally, what we've always measured the web by is unique visitors and page views. And that's useful information. It's much more information than you ever got as a publisher of your print magazine. But we can know so much more. Like, did someone not just look at this, but did they read it? Did they get all the way to the end? What did they think about it? Now we pay attention if they shared it, but we mostly care about that so it gets distributed more, so we get more page views and unique visitors. And so we want to figure out what the meaningful feedback is that not only rewards quality, but helps people even who are publishing things and writing things improve. That's one aspect of it. Another big one for Medium was personally motivated because I want to work with other people in creating and exploring ideas and presenting them. And this is what media organizations do, although they have pressure on their costs. But the internet historically is fantastic at bringing people together to create something better than they can do themselves. And two huge examples, of course, are Wikipedia and all open source software. And the internet does that uniquely, but we don't apply that really to this category of content, article type, knowledge sharing. It's been tried with news, but news is probably not ideal for it. And so how can we do that? They're very simple things we can potentially do, like get another set of eyeballs on your piece. And there are some efforts, but it's not the default. The default is, if you're going to publish on the internet and you're not part of a media organization, you write something yourself, you edit it yourself, you publish it yourself, you market it yourself. And that is not, it's great that you can do all that, but that's not going to lead to the best quality product. And if we have all these other people in the world who can potentially collaborate with you, let's make that happen. So those are a couple of the ideas behind Medium, and it's just like saying what is the internet good at? It's lowering cost of distribution and increasing speed is one thing. We've kind of done that. Now let's work on the other things.
And so, how much of what Medium is do you already know? And how much did you know when you started? Because having known you now through two companies and, sort of both being involved in blogging, you feel very intuitive in how you build products, but I don't think that you build a 5-year plan and a roadmap. Am I correct?
You're correct, yeah.
So on this Medium journey, how you've explained it to me today here on stage is a lot more than when we first talked about it.
Yeah. It'll be different in 6 months, I'm sure. The long-term vision won't change, or what we're going for, I don't think will change, but how I describe it will change, and what I think the really important elements are will change. And I think this is the way I develop products, and you discover them over time. Even going back to that Twitter story, and the really key, huge insight we had around 2009, I think, is when you remember when we changed the question from what are you doing, what's happening?
Right.
That was after we realized, Twitter isn't about status updates to my friends. It's more about, it's an information network, not a social network. It's also a social network to a degree, and that's what a lot of people use it for, but what we really wanted to emphasize was this real-time information. And that came after a couple years in. And then we started tweaking the product in that direction. We added search, we put more emphasis on trends, the way we designed retweet, all were about maximizing the efficient flow of whatever information is important to you. Very different than if we would have maximized making interpersonal connections. And so so with Medium already in the last 6 months, we've changed how we approach the idea of what publishing is. At first, if people checked out Medium right away, we had these big images, full page images. We got rid of those because we realized if we launched with that, we'd just be a photo sharing site. But these things evolve slowly for me. And like Matt Mullenweg said, usage for your product is like oxygen for ideas, to paraphrase him. But I believe that's true. And it's not that I look at what people do, or I do look at what people do with the product and getting it out early, but it's not about data analysis or listening to feedback and saying it should do this. It's just you realize in real time as they're doing it, you're like, oh, that thing's not important. This thing over here is important.
Right.
And then you nudge it that direction. And then in retrospect, you look back and you're like, oh yeah, brilliant plan. We were doing that all along.
Yeah, you can do the archaeology.
That's what it is.
The collections to me seem like a key part of this. I put an article up there, it got added to other people's collections, I added it to a collection. It's just sort of like, it forced me to say, what is this piece? What's the bigger narrative of this piece you're writing? And it was a piece about the supercharger network for the Model S, the Teslas. You have one.
I do, thanks to you. Well, not that you gave me the Tesla, but you encouraged me to give the Tesla.
I took you for a test drive when I got
tangential. It. Yes, it's amazing.
It's awesome.
Tesla. Should we talk about Tesla?
Yeah, let's talk about it for a minute. People care about it. What do you think of that? I mean, you're a product builder. What do you think of the Model S?
It's amazing. It's the best car ever made, in my opinion. Not that I've tried all the cars, but if you consider from a practical perspective, something you can drive around town and is an amazing experience, and just technologically a leap beyond everything before. I think it's amazing.
When you see a product like that as an entrepreneur, does it make you rethink your entrepreneurial process? I mean,
Well, I thought you were going to say, does it make you rethink why you're helping people just
do publishing?
put words on the internet?
No, words are important historically. Yeah. So is transportation, but words are certainly important. But I mean, just as an entrepreneur, to see Elon take that huge leap of cars,
it's very inspiring.
And new cars, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It's super mind-blowing. I mean, you know Elon well, I know. I don't know him as well, but it's to see that kind of ambition and just going for it in Silicon Valley is inspiring to me. I hope they do fantastic.
Yeah. So talk about the collections on Medium, because it did ask me to say, what is this? What collection is this, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
so explain. Most people probably aren't that familiar with it, but I'll explain what we're trying to do. We're trying to give context to what people publish and create a system where the whole becomes more than the sum of the parts. So the collection model is basically, it's a bucket. It's kind of like a tag, but it's more structured than a tag. And things can live in more than one collection. But what it does is it frames content. So you wrote your Tesla thing in, what was the collection? Do you remember? Whatever.
4 or 5 months ago.
Say it's like transportation.
Yeah, it was transportation. Yeah.
And
no, mind-blowing ideas.
Mind-blowing ideas. So there you go. Mind-blowing ideas, free transportation for life. And so that's a mind-blowing idea. So that makes me think, what are other mind-blowing ideas? Oh, I got a mind-blowing idea. But that can also be posted to a collection I created called We Live in the Future. The fact that this exists, so I created that collection because I was looking at my iPhone, I was thinking about the maps and the fact that we always know where we are, and it's completely foreign to us to be lost now. I was like,
that is kind of mind-blowing. I can't remember the last time I was lost.
We don't get lost anymore.
We used to get lost all the time.
Absolutely. It was scary.
We do live in the future.
We live in the future.
Right.
So there's all these.
So now you've got me thinking about we live in the future.
Exactly. So there's all these things that, and so it frames ideas in a way that creates more ideas. So that's what we're trying to do with collections. So in every collection is a prompt for writing something. It's also a prompt for another collection, which is a new way to frame it, which is is a prompt for writing more stuff. And they're also all discovery mechanisms. And they're also collaborative, so if I write about a mind-blowing idea and you write about a mind-blowing idea and someone else is inspired, then people who are into mind-blowing ideas, instead of all these just being on our blogs or wherever, can get the mind-blowing ideas.
Is that your secret metric, the ability for people to then, build this cohort of, like-minded ideas and inspired? Is that what you're optimizing for? Like, how many more collections and stories came from your story about We Don't Get Lost?
We don't have a secret metric yet, but I'll consider that one.
Well, I mean, also, and then getting to the bottom of the page is also an interesting metric. You are recording that one? How far down the page people get?
We're recording a rough heuristic for reads. And when I don't know if you checked your stats on Medium, but you get page views and you get what we call reads, which is like, were they there long enough and did they get mostly through it? And then recommends, as we call it, which are a version of like.
You hired somebody who's a book agent to work on this project. That got a lot of press. Who was the person and what was the idea there?
I hired this fantastic woman named Kate Lee, who is heading up our editorial team in New York. And the thinking, so I'm doing something different with this publishing platform than others in that we have an editorial piece. So instead of just opening the doors and hoping good stuff shows up, we are actually making sure good stuff shows up by having a team of editors. We don't have paid writers on staff, but we have a team of editors whose job is twofold. It's to commission and solicit good stuff from the world that might not otherwise show up. Bret Easton Ellis, for example, wrote a post last week about his new novel. It was through these literary connections in New York. And then their job is also to curate the good stuff that's coming in organically. And it's sort of you can see it as a bootstrapping strategy where we want, obviously the payoff of Medium, it works best if it's a marketplace and there's lots of consumers coming there to get good stuff, and there's creators coming there because they can more easily get attention. And so we need to bootstrap that. So, and it's not as easy. It's not like a tweet. People aren't just going to do it. It's not as easy. And we don't expect the ratio of creators to consumers to be the same as something like Twitter or Instagram. The point isn't to lower the barrier as far as possible to get everybody creating. It's just to get the maximum audience for the really good stuff. And so that's why we have an editorial team, and we'll see how it goes. It's fairly experimental, but if we're trying to create something big, so it should pay off.
Hey, everybody, what a great episode we're having here. And it's so easy and delightful for me to tell you about GoToMeeting because I have been using it for like 6, 7, 8 years. I can't even remember when I first got my GoToMeeting, but I can tell you that when I'm on a meeting that's not GoToMeeting, I freak out because nothing ever works. And when I'm on a GoToMeeting meeting, it's just meeting is believing because everything works flawlessly. I use it all the time. And one of the things I love to do with it is switch who is the presenter, or I can request a keyboard and mouse, and I can do actions on the other person's computer. So they could be showing me their deck, but I could be controlling the slides. Or I could say, hey, let's have this person control the meeting for a little bit. Then I can switch it to another person, and we could be in the chat room taking notes together. So I've been on board calls where I'm putting my notes into the chat room. Other people are chatting. So one person is giving a presentation. The rest of us are piling up our questions for the board discussion. So really just super effective and works great. The solution for people with clients and coworkers in different locations or on the go, hosting online meetings with GoToMeeting, launch or join meetings from anywhere, and you can use your computer, smartphone, tablet, any of those devices. And I used my iPad mini the other day as a secondary device, so I was logged in twice on my laptop, using my camera there for me, and then I took my iPad mini and I used that as a camera that I could sort of show an iPad. I was using my iPad camera to show an iPhone demo, which is crazy. It's just like I have multiple inputs of video and stuff like that going on in GoToMeeting. Just brilliant. And it all works flawlessly. They really focus on making it actually work so that you don't have those moments during the meeting where the technology is getting in the way of moving you forward through the meeting. That's the thing that makes me crazy, is when the technology is holding you back, not enabling you. And the beautiful HD Faces works on Mac and PCs. Visit GoToMeeting, click on the Try It Free button, and use the promo code TWIST. Yeah, go to GoToMeeting, click on Try It Free. Use the promo code TWIST. GoToMeeting. Meeting is believing. And you can get a free 30-day trial by going to GoToMeeting, clicking on the Try It Free button, and using the promo code TWIST. Let's all take a moment to thank at GoToMeeting on our Twitter accounts, Facebook, etc. And when the sponsors here, you thank them. I know some of you have already bought your account. Some of you are saving up the money to pay for an account, whatever it is. You need to go just thank them on Twitter, because when they see that, they're like, oh, that's great. Jason's got a great audience who's super loyal. And then they renew, and then we can do more and bigger things. And GoToMeeting has just been with me from the beginning of the show, 3 or 4 years of them as a partner. And boy, have they been supportive. And I really do appreciate it. Let's get back to this great episode.
And when you look at stuff like the Huffington Post and Business Insider, which have become, very SEO driven and headline link baiting kind of driven, and so overly social in a way, like in a Mashable kind of like social is the focus to get the page views. Mm-hmm. When you see that rabid page view addiction and the sloppiness, I mean, it feels to me when I first saw it that this was a reaction to how sloppy and fast and noisy those things are.
Right. Well,
on a design sort of perspective, architecture maybe.
Well, design certainly. I mean, most of the web is really ugly and a terrible experience from a consumption standpoint. So, we want to design something modern and works beautifully on any device, and it's clean and focuses on the content. But yes, some of those. I mean, Business Insider is a lot of trash in my experience. Not entirely, but it's terrible in many ways, and they're optimizing for page views probably, or whatever it is. Ours isn't, Medium isn't really a reaction to that exactly, although I have used that as an example of something, this system is broken. If that's succeeding, the system is broken. Can we do better? Right. And I don't know, maybe it's naive to think we can do better. Maybe it's naive to think that accuracy matters, or if you build the right system, that quality will actually get more attention. But I think it's possible to use the network and use great design and build a system that produces a better product. And I always want to design products for myself. So what I want to read is not that. So we'll see.
Commerce is a big part of the problem in publishing today. You would agree? The ability to pay writers.
The economics of it?
The economics.
Yeah.
Writers need to get paid.
Yep.
They seem to have somehow linked page views to writers in such a direct way that it's almost, I don't know if you saw the piece in the New York Times where the writer sort of trashed the Tesla because it couldn't do the charging stations when he actually maybe fudged the numbers a little bit and didn't listen to instructions. So it almost felt like he was making the story more sensational to get page views. At least that was my sort of reading of it. It's almost like the journalists are now charged with the performance of their piece, not the accuracy or the readability.
Yeah,
or the
it's
artistic
dangerous. It goes back to incentives and what is being rewarded. The economics of journalism is a very tough problem, and I don't know that we will have a solution to that. But and we're mostly not focusing on news per se, but maybe I think building an economic model that supports journalism is a worthy goal and something that we're definitely going to experiment with.
If you were going to experiment, or when you do experiment, are you inclined to think that native advertising and sponsor messages are not the future, and Andrew Sullivan and paying some kind of subscription or token donation is more aligned with your vision?
I don't know. I think it's too early to say. I hope all of that works to some extent, and I think it's all worth trying. But the native stuff is, if you can build a content platform, it's very different than building a publication. The economics are different, and so I think the Twitter, for example, has a form of native advertising working very well. I think anytime you build a content platform, you will have commercial usage of that platform, and if it's a sizable audience, there's money to be made, which is different than solving the New York Times problem.
Right.
And it relies on a lot of people creating content who don't need to be paid, and that's not why they're creating it. And I don't think that's exploiting those people. It's just the motivations for most people is not necessarily to be paid, but hopefully the whole system generates enough money to get those paid who need to be.
And how does the Huffington Post sort of blended model? They sort of said, let's put a couple of George Clooney stories on the front page and then hire some people in New York to boiler room it out and write short, SEO style social pieces.
Well, it seems to work for them. I don't know. You probably know more about it than I do. There's some very sophisticated people at all these places who are blending these things and looking at the economics very carefully. I'm mostly a software guy and internet experience guy, and I want to create a beautiful tool that lets people express themselves as well as possible and create a system that gets them the attention they deserve.
Interesting. And what do you think of the sort of Flipboards of the world and these people who are aggregating stuff together that's not on their site but trying to display it? Do you think that's a bridge like RSS readers was, or?
Yeah, I think Flipboard's really well done, and
do you use it?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you?
I want to, but I don't find myself doing so, which is kind of, I kind of feel like we might be similar in our usage pattern. Like once in a while I see it on my apps and I'm like, oh, that is beautiful looking, and then I use it and then I go, I didn't really get so much out of it.
Huh. I don't know. It's a tough problem, but the ones I'm more suspicious of, I think Flipboard is very above board in their doing deals with publishers, and
they're very permission based.
And there are some that are not, that I think are pretty sketchy. I don't believe in the whole approach of let's just it's a new world. Let's take all the content and deal with it later and the ramifications. And I think that's not good for anybody, except maybe the people who are stealing the content
Right.
for a while. So Flipboard is not that. I think they're probably the best of the bunch. It doesn't. Well, we'll see.
What will success be for Medium? I mean, when you look at it from 5 years from now, 10 years from now, do you know what, if you had a vision in your mind of what success was, you wake up one day and the New York Times has been replaced by Medium, or it's like that a person could make a choice between the New York Times and Medium and have an equal experience, or a choice between Vanity Fair and Medium and have a comparable experience? Is it Condé Nast, or is it New York Times, or is it somewhere in between?
I don't think it's either of those. We think of ourselves as a platform, not a publication. Even though we are doing some editorial work, we're primarily a platform. So the success would be millions of people who are sharing knowledge, ideas, and stories that are impacting other people, where the good stuff is floating to the top, where it's a significant force, significant source of quality information, and that fills a void and does innovative, cool stuff. And that's success. How big that is hard to say, but as long as it's good, I'll be happy.
What have you learned about entrepreneurship now? I mean, you don't need to be working anymore. You've done pretty well for yourself. You keep at it, and you're still a young guy. So what is it that you've learned over these last 3 companies, these 3 journeys, and investing in some, and seeing a lot? What is it that you've learned as an entrepreneur matters? What matters for the young entrepreneurs here who are starting?
Do something that you really want to exist in the world and focus on it entirely. And something good will probably come of it.
Seems to have worked pretty well, yeah.
The focus part is hard, especially as you get older, I think. Not just because you might have family and other responsibilities, but because there's so many more opportunities. And do this project over here, or go on this trip or whatever. And so the only way I can manage it and feel like I'm really doing my best work is if I say no every day, tons of times, and via email or to intriguing opportunities, because I know I think that's the bigger difference between first-time or young entrepreneurs and those, especially if you've had some success, is early on, if you think back to your career, you were entirely focused and obsessed on one thing.
Right.
And you just didn't have any choice but to make that successful, and so you pulled through. And I think once you start having choices and it becomes not as important to make it successful, you're like, then it's not.
You can float from project to project, or idea to idea, or vacation to vacation, or whatever it might be. Hey, let's go through some of the companies out there and people out there and get your sort of reaction.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, this is the part where you have to give your insights on the industry. Google, you sold your first company there, all trading at an all-time high of the stock, and
is it?
Every day it seems like it hits a new high.
Sweet.
And Larry Page now running the company, Sergey doing the Project X stuff. When you watch that company from when you sold it to now, what do you think?
Amazing. I'm a huge Google fan. I think everybody who has worked at Google always has a fondness for Google, and their values are real. It's been 8 years since I left Google, or not 8 or 9. So it's a completely different company, but I'm a fan of Larry's. I love that he's making big bets. I think they're going to continue to take over the world.
Yeah, they seem like they're doing pretty well. Apple, what do you think? I mean, now with Tim Cook running Apple, and
I don't know Apple as a company very well. It's funny that it's here in the Valley employing tens of thousands of people, and yet I don't seem to know any of them. It's strange to me. And so, I don't know, they probably drive around, or fly in their special
teleport
cars. Yeah, whatever they're working on, we'll know about it later. And it's impressive. I use their products, but I don't know the company.
Yeah. And what do you think of their recent performance? Are you're using all their products? I take it. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the software level, they don't seem to be able to get anything right. I mean, the maps, the email product, obviously their backup, whatever the iCloud is terrible. Everything seems to be terrible except for the hardware and the OS.
Yeah.
Why is that? And what do you think that means for the Valley? Do you think they're going to be buying up a ton of apps?
I think it comes back to focus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really hard for a company to be excellent at completely different disciplines. And we haven't seen it happen very much in the history of the industry. That's why every wave of new technology ushers in new dominating players. And it's, for some reason, and it's hard to analyze because you think, well, they have all the smart people and all the money, they should rule the next thing and they have an advantage, but it never happens. Unless, Google's many of their most important things have of course come through acquisition. And YouTube and Android, and Maps.
Yeah.
They build a lot of maps internally and bought Android very early, but it's what they found is it's hard to do that stuff internally, and so that's part of the beauty of this industry. When I was at Google, shortly after I sold my company, I realized why there was going to continue to be opportunities for entrepreneurs.
When you got inside.
When I got inside. Because you're outside and back in the day before Facebook and before Apple was as dominant, Google was the big, scary / admired company. And any field you're in, the thing VCs would say was well, what if Google gets into this? And there's no good way to answer that question. But then I got in there and I was oh, well, we don't have to worry about that at all. There's plenty of room, not because they're incompetent, but because that's not what they're thinking about, and it's not what they're optimizing for. And even once I got in there, it was much harder to operate Blogger, which was still very, very startup sized, and it was just, they have to do different things. There's lots that's well known about that problem, but it's kind of the beauty of the industry.
Yeah. That
they all kind of fall, or they mature, or they slow down, and so we can all create new things.
And what do you think of Facebook? Famously, Twitter had opportunities to sell to, I think you've been pretty out there talking about that before.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Don't know what you're talking about, but what do you think of Facebook? Not a fan?
Facebook is, I don't know. I'm giving boring answers because...
Oh, do people ask it a lot? Yeah.
No, Facebook's, it's super impressive. I don't really use it that much. I think that I'm highly biased, and I talked to a lot of people, but most of them work at Twitter, or have worked at Twitter, and they're it seems like there's Facebook people and Twitter people. You use both, probably.
I syndicate my Twitter to Facebook kind of situation.
I realized after talking to someone who was a Twitter person and became a Facebook person, that's just what you get used to. And so if you're used to scanning the Twitter feed, the Facebook feed feels all noisy and foreign. And if you're really used to Facebook feed and you go back to Twitter, it's all condensed and cryptic.
Yeah.
And it's just habit, and you get used to whatever, and the other thing feels foreign and weird and you don't really understand it. And so Facebook feels foreign and weird to me, but obviously they got a ton of stuff right, and where they go next, I think all the worries about, well, they won't be able to make money on mobile and all that is obviously were completely silly. I always thought that was silly. They're incredibly smart. They're strategic as hell. They think they think out there a ways and think we want to get that thing out there. They're not just iterating. Right. Although sometimes they iterate and just copy something and it seems dumb. It's
why would you copy Snapchat in 2 weeks and then make a big deal about it in the press? That was an odd announcement.
Yeah, it's not. But on the other hand,
that's something an Ev Williams would ever do. You would never, as an entrepreneur, I respect you deeply as an entrepreneur, you know that. But I kind of wonder about Zuckerberg as an entrepreneur, that you would say, I'm going to find the most successful thing out there that people are talking about, which is Snapchat, as Snapchat's going to replace Facebook or whatever, and I'm going to make a point of rebuilding it in 2 weeks with my team, and then do a bunch of press about it, and look how quickly we can destroy that little startup and do something as quick as they can and steal the entire UX. You would never it would never cross your mind.
I wouldn't, but
if
Zuckerberg's
somebody-
much richer than me, so maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
But if somebody came to you with that concept in your own company, you'd be like,
yeah.
why would we do that?
Yeah,
As
it's
opposed to
true.
doing something original.
Yeah. Although I noticed, it's funny that Silicon Valley, there's such respect for originality in Silicon Valley that doesn't necessarily always serve us, because, and I think you go to a party, you don't want to run into the person whose product you ripped off at a party.
Right.
And that's
That would
why,
be bad.
yeah, that's why MySpace came from LA, and I forget other examples, but I've thought of other examples before that were kind of copies of things, and they were started outside the Valley, because you're not, is different
Uncouth.
ethos, or
Yeah.
here it's uncouth, and it's a little bit, and I think that will change as the industry matures, and it's maturing a lot, and so
Right.
there's a lot more cutthroatedness than there was 10 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, it now seems like Larry Page is like, yeah, just make something better than Facebook as quick as possible with Google Plus and put it in the menu bar.
Maybe.
Perhaps.
I don't know.
Tell me about the other investments. I know Branch is one, and
Lyft.
And Lyft, yeah.
Yeah, Branch is conversations, trying to be a better way to do conversations. They're a company we helped start and is now in New York. Lyft is a habit tracking app, which I'm on the board of, and we helped start from Obvious last year, and it's great. It's one of my favorite things. It's just simply track. It's an iPhone app currently, and you track what you want to do or not do, and it changes your behavior, which changes your life. Those are the two companies that we were most actively involved in, and then we have a handful of investments. Beyond Meat is an alternative meat.
yeah, tell me about that. That's fascinating. Is that in Hakasana, the restaurant? Somebody told me that's the meat they're serving.
I don't
The
know if
faux
it's there.
meat.
Yeah, it's possible. I think they have it at the Source, which is right near here. And then it's in Whole Foods.
Yeah.
It's not in product. It's not in packaging yet. It's at the deli. That's super interesting one.
Why is that interesting to you?
Because meat is a huge problem, and if you just look at it from an environmental perspective, the world population eating meat is not sustainable. So this at scale will be much more efficient in terms of energy and produced to create the protein, and so that's a big interest of mine is energy and climate. So, and it's a huge industry and opportunity. So these guys have great technology that they've currently used to produce the most chicken-like chicken substance.
Mark
I've ever seen.
Bittman, I think, in the New York Times got absolutely duped
Yeah.
as to he could not tell
Yeah,
the chicken from the faux chicken.
yeah, it's weird stuff.
But it tastes
It's awesome.
good.
It's
yeah.
science. It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
We do live in
It
the
tastes
future.
good. We live in the future. Yeah.
Right.
Chicken not grown.
Well,
from
when the
chicken.
chef from the New York Times can't tell the difference, we do live in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what do you think of all the climate? You mentioned climate is a big passion of yours. What do you think of the state of affairs, discourse in a way, when people can deny climate?
It's amazing. It's maddening. And that actually goes back to sort of medium and reason that I focus on this sort of project. I mean, as an internet technologist utopian 15 years ago, we believed the internet was going to make us all smarter, and society would make better decisions because the truth would be out there, and everything would be fact checked and all this stuff. And it's amazing that if you look at that issue in particular, the amount of BS and press manipulation that certain industries have been able to propagate to completely BS the entire nation and make them make really bad long-term choices. It's like, really? How is this possible? This is something about our information systems are incredibly broken, and political systems, of course, but one fuels the other.
Yeah, when hundreds of scientists definitively sign documents that say this is a specific disturbing trend, and the cost of ignoring it could be cataclysmic. And people can go on television or broadcast and just say, no, that's false, with no science degree or research.
Yeah. And it's also human nature. I mean, if two people are telling me two different things, and one of them causes me a lot of anxiety to believe, and one of them gives me a lot of relief, my brain is going to want to believe, if I can find any excuse to do so, the one that's not causing me anxiety. That's a really hard problem to combat, and it's been brilliantly manipulated, though, by the conservative faction.
Interesting. So I think we understand Medium now. We've come full circle. This has been an amazing 45 minutes. Wow. Give it up for Ev Williams, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Well done. Awesome. That's great.